Buffy, Fringe, Dresden Files, Hellboy, Constantine, Supernatural, The Republican Party, The X-Files. What do all these things have in common? They're full of monsters. There are things that go bump in the night, and you need a game that lets you bump back. Welcome to The R-Files, a Rise of the Rulelord special on Monster of the Week. Hello, I'm Pete, your spooky and vicious Rulelord. And for tonight, I'll also be your keeper as we explore my favorite TTRPG system. I've been wanting to talk about Monster of the Week for a while. The combination of Spooky Season as well as Evil Hat's latest backer kit seemed like the perfect combination to do that. This episode is not sponsored by, but is a full-fledged endorsement of the Slayer's Survival Kit and Hunter Journals campaign. These books give you new Hunter playbooks, new team playbooks, as well as new flavors for moves, assets, allies, and guidance for big magic. The campaign is fully funded, but there's still time to back it. Wait. Some of you longtime listeners are probably saying, this is a Pathfinder podcast. Should that be your favorite? Well, think about it this way. I love hamburgers. There's lots of places that I can go for hamburgers. It's easily one of the most accessible fast food formats there is, as well as even at nicer restaurants. It's familiar. I can take other people to go get hamburgers. I can get a hamburger for someone else and they'll probably eat it. Most people have the supplies to make hamburgers of their own. They have a long history with hamburgers. But put some buttered chicken on tandoori rice with some garlic naan and my taste buds are going wild. Probably the only system that is easier to find resources for is Dungeons & Dragons. But if you put Pathfinder and Monster of the Week together and ask me which one I wanted to play, I'd point at Monster of the Week. Pathfinder is brilliant at what it is, which is a combat engine set in a fantasy setting. Because it's so combat focused, it is kind of chonky when it comes to rules, especially in how it gives so much diverse choices to players. It has to be very specific with its rules because of how it runs its encounters. Meanwhile, Monster of the Week is a modern fantasy game centered around the investigation of a particular creature. It's those three elements that I love: modern fantasy, investigation, and creatures. I'll talk about this a bit in my Starfinder episode too, but the fantasy setting always kind of rubs me the wrong way, and it has nothing to do with the inherent aspect of like sword and sorcery, and it has everything to do with the lack of toilets. Fantasy is a great setting for heroism, but it is an awful place to live. There's this Dracula movie, I can't remember the title of it, but Dracula lives up until modern times, and somehow he gets into this woman's apartment and he looks over and he's like, "What a wonderful palace you have." Because even for the rich folks, all the way from Greco-Roman to more Renaissance-y times, life just sucked. It was uncomfortable, it was cold, and yes, you couldn't just get rid of your crap. Like, think of any fantasy character that you can. Aragorn, Gandalf, Galadriel. At worst, they're probably shitting in caves, and at best, chamber pots. And that's just gross. I like the idea that when the adventurers are done with the end of the day, that they can go home, they can open up a refrigerator, they can go sit on a couch made with springs instead of straw, and that when they go to the bathroom, it is flushed away rather than something that they just have to keep in the house and dump outside of a window. It's just a weird personal hang-up for me that makes it more comfortable to run in a modern or sci-fi setting rather than a fantasy one. The other part is investigation versus combat. Now, I love a good combat, don't get me wrong, but my favorite part about role-playing games is the role-playing. I really like to be characters. I really like to weave stories. I like to interact with my players. But the dynamic shifts between Monster of the Week and Pathfinder. Pathfinder's balance is built around the player succeeding. A severe encounter in Pathfinder isn't one of life and death. it's still tailored so that the players have a reasonable chance of getting out of there with some bumps and bruises. Even extreme encounters are ones that still have odds in the player's favor. Because of this, there is hardly any challenge that you can put in front of a Pathfinder player that they're not just able to plow through. If I put a big bad Shoggoth or dragon in front of them, they're not going to run away scared. The wizard's going to cast Fireball, the ranger's going to shoot arrows like a machine gun, the cleric's going to call down the power of gods, and the fighter's going to roll a 2 and still critically succeed. There is no feeling of fear for a Pathfinder player, no matter how big the bad is that I put in front of them. That is not true for Monster of the Week. This game does not have balance, rather the game is about creating balance in the player's favor. Most of the player abilities are focused on what Pathfinder players would know as exploration mode. Talking to NPCs, doing research, making sure that you have the right weapons. When you see a monster, it's not going to be like going into the Doom video game and just shooting up 100 of them and getting away with barely a scratch. You will probably die if you try to take down a Monster of the Week monster, because that's the game. Taking down one single big threat, trying to make sure that you even can when you go in to encounter them. There's nothing wrong with either style of play, but to butcher that Parthenax quote, you could play a game where you are born good, or you could play a game where you overcome evil through great effort. I just happen to prefer the latter one because as someone who is usually always a GM, that is the one that gives me the most interaction with the players rather than just mostly being a computer running combat. And finally, the creatures. This is truly just where I'm in love with this game because I love the paranormal and the supernatural. I was raised on Daytime Discovery Channel where they talked about the occult, ghost stories, monster hunters. I fell in love with the documentaries about trying to find Bigfoot or proof of aliens in crop circles. It's just my favorite genre for everything from comic books to video games to movies. I also just really like the idea of monsters, so whereas other people when new Pathfinder books are getting excited about the player options, I'm just hoping that they added a little bestiary to it. I want to see all the cool creatures. I want to see all the cool art for those creatures. I like to dream about being able to run those creatures in a campaign. I like to think about their habits, their behaviors. What is their diet? What is their role in an ecological system? Now, granted, I'm not going to be doing a ton of that running a monster in Monster of the Week, but I am going to do more of that in Monster of the Week than I am in Pathfinder. In running Pathfinder, I'm very lucky if one player chooses to be interested enough in the creature to be able to do a knowledge check on them during combat, and usually that's just to find out what their low save is or their weakness. For Monster of the Week, you better hope that you know every single thing about that monster before you ever become face to face with it. Finding out the weakness is the point. Finding out its behavior is the point. Tracking it down to its lair is the point. Knowing how it eats, when it eats, what it eats. Just that bit of information can be the difference between life and death in a Monster of the Week encounter. In Pathfinder, you can bludgeon something enough to the point where it dies, but you might have an easier time if you bother to find out what its weaknesses, resistances, or immunities are. So this is not to say that I don't love Pathfinder. It's quite the opposite. I am in love with this game system, but I just happen to like Monster of the Week a little bit more. So that's my little set aside for the Pathfinder listeners, but now we're going to go into what Monster of the Week really is. Monster of the Week is built off of the idea of running it almost like a TV show, where every episode you are facing a new creature. The protagonists are called hunters. The antagonist / storyteller is the keeper. The keeper does not roll any dice. Rather, it is just the hunters who do. The keeper chooses what situation calls for what dice roll, and the player has to meet that dice roll. Depending on how the dice roll goes, that's the direction the story goes. During the entire course of the game, the players will only use 2 dice, 2 d6s to be precise. Every hunter also has a playbook that's going to outline all the things that you're good at, and even occasionally the things that you're not good at. We'll go over the playbooks more in a second, but every playbook is going to let you choose a set of ratings. For Pathfinder players, this is what we would know as ability scores. You add your rating to the die roll, and that's the total result. There are 5 ratings: cool, tough, charm, sharp, and weird. Cool is how calm and collected you are. This is going to be used for the Act Under Pressure and Help Out move. Act Under Pressure is probably one of the most common moves, as it covers any difficult or dangerous action that isn't covered by another move. So, how good you are at MacGyvering things. Help Out is pretty basic. You're going to help out another hunter do something, and if you succeed, you'll give them a bonus. Because cool people help their friends. Tough is how strong and mean you are in a fight. This is going to be used for the Kick Some Ass and Protect Someone moves. Kick Some Ass is the only main fighting move. A fun component of Kick Some Ass is that you will also always take damage, except under one very specific circumstance. Protect Someone is basically the Secret Service president dive in front of a bullet move. You might keep someone out of harm, but you probably will get some harm done to you as well. Charm is how pleasant and persuasive you are. It's going to be used for the manipulate someone action. There is no set deception, intimidate, or diplomacy roles. It is just manipulate someone. It's the move you're going to do anytime you're trying to bring someone to do something that you want. How you choose to manipulate someone is still all up to you. Sharp is how observant you are. This will be used for the knowledge-based investigate a mystery or the perception-based read a bad situation. Investigate a mystery is used to work out what kind of monster you're dealing with, what it can do, and what it's planning. Read a bad situation is what you'll use to work out dangers that are immediately threatening you. So again, in Pathfinder terms, this is the difference between a recall knowledge and a perception check. And finally, weird is used for use magic. Hunters are very good, but they're not all powerful. In fact, a significant part of this game is failure. For the entire campaign, there are only 2 difficulties that you'll ever have to try to beat: 6 and 10. The dice roll in combination with your rating will determine how good you are at doing that. The game doesn't explicitly call them this, but because I'm a Pathfinder player, it's easier to think about the levels of success. A 6 and below is a miss, or what we would think of as a critical failure. Most assuredly, something bad is going to happen as a result of this roll. The fun part, though, is that failure is also your opportunity to gain experience points, letting you level up. A 6 to 7 is a mixed result. It will likely have a good outcome and a bad one. A 10 or above is a success. I'm not going to call it a critical success, though, because there are still some bad things that could happen. The closest thing to a critical success are advanced moves. These can be unlocked on some playbooks after a level up. These advanced moves are special outcomes that will result from rolls of 12 or above. However, you're not going to get those for a while, so let's not concentrate on them. So theoretically, a player could go through an entire campaign without ever leveling up if they only do the things that they're naturally good at doing. It's only when they take risks, open themselves up to failure, that they have any chance at getting better. Sometimes that leveling up opportunity is a good enough reason to take the L. There are sometimes circumstances where that absolutely cannot happen, and there is a resource for players for that. Every player has a cache of luck. This is a non-renewable resource. It is going to stay the exact same throughout the entire campaign, so whenever you use luck, that's it, it's gone. But it can automatically change the result to a 12, or you can completely avoid harm. So you've rolled dice, you've added your modifier. Now there's bonuses to add. They come in 3 types: forward, ongoing, and hold. If you get a forward bonus, that can only be applied on your very next roll. An ongoing bonus can be applied until the situation ends. Hold isn't really a numerical bonus, rather they're free questions. If you're investigating a mystery or reading a bad situation, hold is the number of questions that you get to ask the keeper, and they have to give you the right answer. So if you have 2 hold, that means 2 questions. And 2 answers. The final major concepts to understand are healing and harm. Every hunter and monster has a harm rating. This is essentially hit points. Most hunters only have around 8 harm total, whereas monsters can have anywhere between 2 to infinite. Realistically though, the top number is probably around 20. You can reduce the amount of harm that you take with armor, same for monsters, but for monsters especially, they may only take harm if you're using the right kind of weapon. Taking between 0 and 3 harm won't have many bad effects, and you can usually treat them just by sleeping. Taking harm between 4 and 7 is serious, and you need to mark the unstable box. This requires heavier treatment than just sleeping it off. Healing can be done with special moves, magic, or going to an infirmary or hospital. You'll also get some harm back between mysteries. If you have a lot of time between mysteries, heal fully, and if there's not a lot of time, you only get 1 back. The only other major mechanical rule to understand is how tags work. Pathfinder players would recognize these as traits. Gear, weapons, and armor will come with certain tags. If it's gear that you get from a playbook, it'll say which tags they are right there. These tags can apply both bonuses and penalties to whatever it is that you're using. Weapons will also say a base of how much harm they do, anywhere from 1 to 3. So there's no rolling damage, you're only rolling to hit. So for example, a handgun might be close, loud, and quick and do 1 harm. The close tag means that it's effective at close quarters, outside arm's reach, but not too far away. Loud means that it'll draw attention, and quick means that it's fast to prepare and attack with, giving you a better chance of going first. If you shoot someone with it and you do kick some ass and get a success, it'll do 1 harm. So what does all of this look like in play? Let's say that a spooky and a flake player are trying to open a filing cabinet. Inside this filing cabinet, there are 2 files with very important information regarding the mystery. The catch, though, is that there's a security guard nearby who might overhear them if the roll doesn't go well. The flake says that they want to pick the lock on the cabinet, so the keeper says to act under pressure. So the flake rolls plus cool. In total, they roll a 10. However, they have a -1 rating in cool, so it goes down to a 9. Oh no! It's a mixed success. Now comes the interactive storytelling, which is the part that I really love. The Act Under Pressure move gives the outcomes of each level of success. On a 10+, they would have done what they set out to do, and on a miss, things would go to hell. On a 7 and 9, though, the keeper is going to give them 3 options. A worse outcome, a hard choice, or a price to pay. The keeper might present all 3 options. They might only present 1, or they might even let the player choose. So let's say that the keeper is feeling generous today and lets the player choose one of the 3 options. The worst outcome might be that the cabinet jams and the player can reach in and grab a file, but they're not going to know which one they get. A hard choice might be that they do open the filing cabinet, but they only have time to find one of the files, but they get to choose which one. A price to pay might be that they get both files, but they're going to be discovered by the guard. This is a pretty pivotal moment in the campaign, so the flake decides to get both files even if it means that they're going to be discovered. And true to form, because of that choice, the keeper has the guard discover both the flake and the spook. The spook isn't very concerned with the guard's safety, so they use their special ability, the Big Whammy. This means that they get to roll plus weird instead of plus tough to kick some ass. Generally, they feel very confident in doing this because weird is their best stat. Unfortunately, they rolled snake eyes, so even with their +3 in weird, that's a 5, which is a miss. In this case, the spook could get some XP, but they'll also take harm instead. Not wanting to get shot today, the spook decides they're going to use luck. That means the kick some ass roll is automatically considered to be a 10+. The big whammy damage is 2 harm, close, obvious, ignore armor. The 2 hunters are in a small room, so close is fine. Obvious means that the magic is obvious. The guard is going to be able to know that the spooky is the one doing this. The guard is wearing a Kevlar vest. Usually that would reduce their harm by 1. However, because of the Big Whammy's ability, they take the full 2 harm. Now on the kick some ass move, even though they did succeed, the creature that they're fighting against still gets to do their harm damage on them. They're going to be able to shoot off with that gun simply as a result of the dice roll that the hunter made. However, because the spooky decided to use luck, and now that their roll is treated as a 10+, they get to choose 1 extra effect. We already established that the handgun only does 1 harm, so they decide to suffer less harm, -1 harm, so effectively they take no damage. The hunters could have a full-fledged flight, but the alarm has already been sounded and they need to get out of there. However, the guard also isn't too keen to stick around because they saw the spooky's power. So the keeper says that the guard runs away. Now the hunters can either choose to leave themselves or pursue. After all, the guard knows the spooky's secret now. The spooky also has an ability called Tune In. They're able to tune into someone's mind and ask a question based on the dice roll. This plus weird roll is a little bit better and they get a 9, so they have hold 1. That means that they can ask the keeper one of the questions and get a +1 ongoing while acting on the answer. They use their hold to ask, what is it planning to do right now? The keeper says that the guard is going to go home and rethink their life. That might be a good situation to do some more digging around here. However, the flake is more suspicious and decides to read a bad situation. They roll plus sharp, something that they're already pretty good at, and get a result of 10. This means that they get to do hold 3. They first ask, what's the biggest threat? The keeper says that the alarms are sounding and surely the police are on their way. They then ask, what's the best way out? The keeper says, probably not the front door because that's where the cops are going to come in, but you can certainly use the window. Finally, they ask, are there any dangers we haven't noticed? And the keeper smiles. And that's how to play Monster of the Week. It's a collaborative storytelling game. You, the hunter, are going to decide on courses of action to take. The keeper is going to decide which of the moves best suits that situation. You'll also have special abilities from your playbook that you can use to alter events. Notice that at no time did the keeper make a roll. Rather, they acted based on the player's rolls. This means that both the player and the keeper are the storytellers. The players with their rolls, the keepers with the result of those rolls. There was also a fight, but there wasn't an initiative. Rather, it was the players deciding on the course of action that they wanted to take. A fight didn't have to happen at all. The players could have tried to manipulate the guard, or they could have just tried to run away. In all cases, it was better to try to avoid harm than getting into a fight. The Spooky's move did 1/4 of the damage that a human can take. And remember, though that handgun only would have done 1 harm, you only have 8 total. It wouldn't take long before you were suffering serious injuries. Before you pick your playbook, you as a team, all of the players need to figure out your team dynamic. Are you a group of investigators? Are you professional monster hunters? Do you work for a secret organization? These are questions that you should all ask yourselves because the team dynamic is also going to determine which playbooks are going to be the most useful. Some team dynamics might allow for complete freedom of choice. Others might be better to necessitate a playbook or two. For example, being in a secretive organization might mean that it would be good for someone to be the professional. Or if you're investigators, someone being the snoop is pretty much essential. If you're playing the base game, there's no mechanical difference between any kind of team that you might play, just story things. And then you get to the Codex of Worlds, which has team playbooks. Ooh. But we'll leave that for another episode. Now, as you get ready to choose your hunter, just remember there can only be one of each. This is because the hunter playbooks don't function like classes as we would understand them in Pathfinder. Rather, you are the archetype. You are that person. So you are not a chosen or a mundane. You are the chosen or the mundane. Looking at each playbook, you'll see that everyone has some of the same categories, and each one also has some very different ones. The first thing you'll do is choose a look. Each playbook will give you a couple prompts to help you out with that. Next, you're going to choose your initial ratings. Unlike Pathfinder's ability boost system where you build up each ability, this is going to be one single choice that lists all of your ratings at the same time. So for example, one choice might have +2 charm, whereas another might have -1 charm. Both might have sharp 1, and one might have +2 tough, and the other might have +1 tough. There's about 5 different options for each handbook, and during the course of your hunter's life, you're going to be able to add or sometimes subtract from those. You'll then make a selection of moves based off of your hunter. Each hunter also has some kind of extra special ability, and I'll go over that in a minute. The final big couple choices is that you might start off with some initial gear, be it weapons or just mundane things to help you out. Once you've made all of these selections, you'll introduce yourself. Each handbook gives you a small prompt that might help you figure out what your hunter's backstory looks like. After you introduce yourselves, you're also going to have a shared history. Each playbook lists several options, and you are going to assign one of those history options to each player. The rest of the book is bookkeeping. There's counters for luck, harm, and the experience you gain before leveling up. You'll also see improvements. These are the things you're going to get as you level up, as well as advanced improvements. The advanced improvements are available after level 5. So let's look at the playbooks and see what each hunter's special thing is. The first is the Chosen. The Chosen is chosen by fate, and you're going to get to choose what that fate is. You're also going to be able to craft a unique special weapon. For your fate, you're going to choose how you found out about it, something that's heroic about you, and something that is doomy about you. As you mark off luck during the course of the campaign, the Keeper is going to get to throw aspects of your fate at you. They also have 2 basic moves that are inherent to them. Destiny's Plaything, which is at the start of each mystery, you might get a little tidbit revealed about your immediate future. And also, I'm Here for a Reason, where if you die, you have to spend a luck point, and then you're going to recover and come back to life. But after it's done, all bets are off. The Crooked is some kind of ne'er-do-well. You're going to pick a background of various, less scrupulous jobs. You'll also have some kind of heat. Something from your past is chasing you. You'll pick 2 and come up with unique NPCs. And finally, you'll have some kind of connection to the underworld. No, not just the criminal underworld, the real underworld. As you use up luck, someone from your past is going to show up. The Divine is someone chosen by a higher power, separate from the Chosen. You'll have several special abilities to fight evil, as well as a divine weapon and special armor that you get to craft. You'll also pick a mission, your main driving force. When you spend luck, you'll find out about some part of your mission that requires your urgent attention. The Expert is the Expert. Their moves are really focused around knowing about something before getting into a fight. They also start with a haven, some kind of sanctum that you get to build off of the choices available. As the Expert uses luck, they're going to discover that something happening now is related to something they were involved with in the past. The Flake is a person who sees patterns in everything, conspiracies around every corner. They're all about stealth and putting the whole mystery together. As they spend luck, they're going to pick an aspect of the situation, and the Keeper is going to tell them what conspiracies it connects to. The Initiate is backed up by some kind of organization. That organization gave you everything and can take everything from you. At the start of each mission, you'll be able to use that sect to maybe get something helpful, but they also might assign you to do something bad. As you spend luck, something is going to go wrong for your sect, project, or disastrous operation. The Monstrous is a monster, a real monster. They're affected by some kind of curse that lets them transform into something horrible. That creature has natural attacks as well as their own special moves. As they spend luck, their monstrous side gains power, and the curse might take them over. The mundane is probably my favorite. It's just the normal guy. Despite not having their own crazy ability, they're very helpful to their team. As they spend luck, they might find something weird or useful. The professional, by contrast, is really good at things. You're also backed up by an agency, but it's more of a day job than a lifestyle. You're going to pick 2 resources that they give you as well as 2 bits of red tape. Whenever you try to request a resource from the agency, you're going to have to roll plus sharp. If you do well, they might give it to you, or they might chew you out, or you might get suspended. As the professional spends luck, their next mission from the agency might come with a lot of red tape. The Spell Slinger is a classic magic user. You're going to pick a kind of combat magic as well as an effect. You'll also pick a method of your spell casting as well as what your relation to magic is. As you spend luck, the official Council of Wizards is going to poke their nose into your business. The Spooky is also a magic user, but their magic is, well, spooky. Their powers also have a dark side. The more that they use them, the more chance that the power has of changing them. As the Spooky rolls luck, their dark side will get nastier. The Wronged was beset by tragedy, but they're on a mission to hunt the monster that caused their pain and to keep everyone else safe. They'll pick someone that they lost, something that did it, and what their role was in the loss. As they use up luck, they'll find out more information about their prey. That's 14 Hunter books already, but the Tome of Mysteries gives us 4 more. The Gumshoe follows a code, and as long as they stick by that code, everything's going to be pretty good. They're going to get a +1 to manipulate people. The first time that they see a monster, they'll be able to hold 1 for investigate a mystery. They also have a network of contacts, and you're going to be able to choose 4 of them throughout the city. As you spend luck, the chances of your next regular case being a mystery increase, and the monster is going to focus on you. The Hex casts a special kind of magic called Rotes. These are going to be special spells that you, the Hex, get to develop. You'll pick requirements for them as well as the effects that happen on a 10+, 7 to 9, and on a miss. But you'll also have some kind of a temptation. The more you play into this temptation, the less likely you are to gain experience. There's also going to be some kind of backlash, and if you spend luck, that backlash is going to hit you at the end of the day. The Pararomantic is a lover, not a fighter. Well, they do some fighting. They have a lot more influence over monsters because they're in love with one. They'll start with some kind of supernatural guide that they're in a relationship with. They'll come up with a special fate for the guide, and the guide will grant them special gifts. But if they abuse that bond, bad things will happen. You have a special relationship status from loving to broken. As you use up luck, your relationship becomes more strained, and the keeper is going to be able to invoke the fate of your guide. Finally, there's the Searcher, someone who's out there to find the truth. Somehow they came in contact with the supernatural, and they're trying to find out more. When they spend luck, something about their first encounter is going to come into play. Might not always be for the better. Those are all the available player handbooks, at least until the Slayer's Survival Kit comes out, adding 9 new Hunter playbooks. Now that you've chosen your playbook, go around, introduce your characters, your backstories, and then choose histories for other players. And then you're ready to start a mystery. Well, almost. Because there's one other player that we have to talk about. The Keeper. The Keeper's the one who's going to be running the game, but they're along for the ride just as much as you are. While they're there to present challenges, their role is far more collaborative. They'll be using aspects of your hunter, your dice rolls, and a secret set of moves to build a story in every mystery that you encounter. Much of the Keeper side of Monster of the Week is general advice. Advice that's good for any game master of any game. The Monster of the Week rulebook gives the Keeper just a large set of ideas. They give you advice on how to build arcs, concepts to help make a mystery more interesting, and how to build interesting characters. But what I really want to talk about is how to build a monster. Despite the name, Monster of the Week doesn't necessarily have a bestiary. It does give you templates for a couple of classic creatures, but overall, it's up to the keeper to design their own unique monsters. However, I do want to let you know about two big resources. The first are mysteries. There are many official mysteries. Some are in the main core rulebook. A lot come from the next book, the Tome of Mysteries. Like Pathfinder, these are a kind of adventure path. They give you a story concept, characters, location, and of course, monsters. There's also an officially recognized third-party product called the Deck of Monsters. This is a deck of cards with non-appropriative monsters. That's right, they're 100% original. They're not going to step over anyone's cultures, and that's kind of why I really love them. They have art for several unique kinds of monsters, as well as a stat block on the back of the card. There's 2 decks out now, but I'm hoping that there will be more in the future. There's also a very expansive community of writers who come up with their own mysteries that you can get on DriveThruRPG. Again, none of this is sponsored by any of those people, I just find them really useful. But if you, like many GMs, are feeling that itch to come up with something extra creative, here's how you do it. You'll first want to have your basic concept. This is largely going to be based off of the player's choices, their composition, their team dynamic. But you as a keeper also have the discretion to steer them onto their first mystery. You can also develop an arc, some kind of overarching storyline. Individual aspects of your mystery can come into play, leading up to a spectacular finale. You'll also want to pick a location as well as notable NPCs. These should not be one-and-done characters, but people that can regularly be interacted with, except for bystanders. These are people that will probably end up dead. They're the people you're really trying to protect. And then there's the actual monster creation. Monsters have a harm pool, as well as a type, power, attacks, armor, weakness, and your own custom moves. So first come up with your monster concept. The book gives 12 types of monsters. Beasts, breeders, collectors, destroyers, devourers, executioners, parasites, queens, sorcerers, tempters, torturers, and tricksters. They each have a motivation, like the queen wants to possess and control, while the trickster wants to create chaos. That concept should help you come up with the powers that they have. For instance, the queen might have minions. These are a smaller set of monsters that the hunters can probably take out a lot more easily. They're things like assassins, brutes, cultists, guardians, right hands, a plague, Renfield, scouts, thieves, or traitors. The queen might have something like this, like a plague, and is able to control it from a distance. You'll then want to figure out a weakness. Notably, Monster of the Week monsters do not die unless they are killed by their weakness. It can be anything as simple as silver or sunlight, or it could be something complex that you have to summon with big magic. You'll want to give it some kind of natural attack, generally between 3 and 5 with a range, some armor, especially if you're going to have its harm pool be lower, and then the total amount of harm. The book recommends 12 as a maximum. Lastly, you'll want to come up with a kind of move for the monster. For instance, queen lackeys might try to save the queen by taking the harm themselves, jumping in the way. Now that you have your monster, have a kind of countdown. This is a way to create a sense of urgency with the hunters. It's a ticking time bomb until the monster or the larger arc gets what they want. The book recommends a 6-stage method using day, shadows, sunlight, dusk, nightfall, and midnight. This is a good way to plan a trajectory for the investigation. With so much variation with what players might choose to do, this gives you important plot beats to get to. It also gives the hunters something definitive to work towards, or stop. So you've come up with a story. You've come up with a countdown and a monster that is working to end the world. You played a session with your hunters and they came out victorious. Well done. Now ask your players these 4 questions. Did we conclude the current mystery? Did we save someone from certain death, or worse? Did we learn something new and important about the world? And did we learn something new and important about one of the hunters? If 1 or 2 of those is a yes, give the hunters 1 experience. If it's 3 or 4, give them 2. Players should then count up their experience and see if they level up. When they reach 6 experience points, they'll be able to select an improvement from their playbook. Once they reach 5, they'll start to select advanced improvements. One of the options that I find particularly endearing is retire this hunter to safety. So few hunters get to experience that. It might be nice just to let them go, start again with a new character. And then keep playing. Come up with new monsters, new mysteries, new arcs. The third major expansion on Monster of the Week is the Codex of Worlds. If you feel that you've gotten all that you can out of the modern age, the Codex of World will give you all the tools you need to run it in different settings. Run an investigation as Neanderthals, or on a completely different planet. There are 2 additional print-on-demand books that you can get. Modern Haunts focuses more on ghosts than creatures, and also provides rules and guidance for creating villains. There's also the Apocrypha, which adds new playbooks, mysteries, and also talks about how to play Monster of the Week when the case is closed. What's the aftermath like? There's also an interesting rule set about how to run the equivalent of what Pathfinder players would know as level 0 characters. These aren't hunters, these are normal people encountering the supernatural. Will they survive? Who can say? There is so much more to these books than I could ever cover in one single episode. What I've tried to do though is just cover the rules, the basics, so that you can start playing this game right now. And you can truly play this game right now without spending a single dime. You can get all of the playbooks in Monster of the Week and Tome of Mysteries completely for free at evilhat.com/monster-of-the-week. I made a better short link at rule2e.com/MOTW. It'll take you to the exact same place. Along with the playbooks that can be printed out or even form fillable, there's also reference sheets for the Keeper and Hunters. These also cover all the essential rule aspects of the game, so you can get right to it. However, I really can't recommend getting these books enough. About half of the main rule book covers the basics of play, and most of that are the individual player handbooks. The rest is just about good storytelling. You could easily use the second half of this book whether you're a writer, a playwright, or even coming up with a campaign for a completely separate system. It's just plain old quality advice, and it's well worth the price of the book. I've said it before and I'll say it again. My goal is not to convert anyone, either from Dungeons & Dragons to Pathfinder or from Pathfinder to Monster of the Week. What I want you to do is try other games, no matter what system your primary one is. Trying out new systems with new rule sets and completely different modes of play will only help you as both a player and a game master. So do yourself a favor, pick up Monster of the Week, run a mystery, and see how you like it. I certainly do. I just wish I had more opportunities to play it. So if you've, got a table, it's got an open chair, virtual, in Salem, Oregon, go into Blue Sky and hop in my DMs and, let me know. It'd be cool. Speaking of, if you like what you heard today, make sure to subscribe to the podcast. If you're already on Spotify or iTunes, make sure to leave a rating and a review. I have officially deleted Twitter, so the only place that you can find me is Blue Sky at rulelord2e.com and my website, rulelord2e.com. And again, if this episode made you want to play Monster of the Week, go to rule2e.com/MOTW to go to the Evil Hat page to get everything that you need to get started. But until that next mystery, don't let the rules eat you. Ooh, spooky.